Welcome to Founders Unplugged, hosted by Greg McCallum. Long-form, honest conversations with founders and entrepreneurs from around the world.
Thank you very much, Greg, and thank you for inviting me on. So my name is Gavin Johnson. I am the founder of a new startup around real-world asset tokenization called Irealise. Our focus is real estate, in particular the finance that sits behind it, and how you can tokenize that for better efficiency, greater access to capital, greater opportunities. And very, very briefly, my background is, I shouldn't say checkered, that sounds really strange and potentially troublesome, but my background is varied. So I come from a background of engineering and science originally, and yes, I have a PhD in applied chemistry, just for those of us that are going to get Googled or LinkedIn afterwards. And after university, I came to the law, so I am still a qualified and practicing solicitor, but I've had a keen interest in technology all my life. From the days of tinkering around with computers at home with my brother, and I was probably not very welcome thinking about what our parents were on about, but plugging everything into everything and just seeing what we could make work. And up until now, and over the last few years, increasingly working in and around blockchain, tokenization, and now inevitably AI, because you can't go anywhere without having to have some form of opinion on AI. And I guess from my part, really seeing that I've never really felt that blockchain and to some extent AI now isn't really being applied in the way that as people we need it to be applied. And this comes from a couple of ideas. One is that being a lawyer, law is about people. And this is a kind of slight point that people miss, I think, is, nobody wants to go and see a lawyer. If you're going to see a lawyer, it's because something bad has happened. Somebody's died, which is not great, or you're in trouble, or you need to put a will together because you might die. I mean, it's all very negative. God forbid you get a divorce, something like that. It's all very negative. But lawyers, we're only ever trying to help, and there's a bit of a disconnect between that and the technology and how technology helps, and perceptions about, is technology helping? Everyone's fearful about AI taking their jobs and all this kind of stuff. And the way I like to think about it is, no, let's just put that to one side. That could happen. That's what technology does. But maybe we can connect what people need, the solutions people need, and the technology, and we can apply it in a sensible way that actually helps people. And that's where Irealise comes in, is, well, you've got all these opportunities, and if you take the sort of crypto madness out of that equation, what can we actually do with this technology? And blockchain is about networks. And if you think about it in a very simplistic way, it's about networks of value. And as soon as you get a network of value, you can begin to bring people together, and you can collectively hold much greater investing power. And you can begin to invest things that are super interesting, in particular to you. And this is where Irealise really comes in, is that, well, we can take any asset, and we like to talk about passion assets because that's where it comes down to. Everybody has a passion in life. And I'll ask you what yours is in a moment, Greg. You can get all these people together, and if you take, say, football club, that's always a good example. Big football club have millions of supporters, and they pay lots of money to go and see matches, and they buy the replica shirts, and they spend a lot of money doing it. What if you could harness that and go to them and say, would you like to own a piece of your club? What we're really offering is the opportunity to invest in, a new stadium or training ground, or even a player at some level. That's quite possible, based on their belief and their passion around that club. And suddenly, if you can open that up, you get access to these incredible investment opportunities that pay, let's say, serious money. It's not, an ISA, and maybe you'll get 4 or 5% if you're lucky in a good year. And, last year you wouldn't be beating inflation with that. But if you could get, say, a commercial debt interest rate, on a commercial loan paid to you, suddenly that's very valuable. And it's much safer than people think. And I have much to disagree with, say, the FCA about other people when they analyse these investment opportunities. But that's a different problem. And that's where it comes from. Well, let's leverage that power. Let's leverage that network. Let's leverage the ability for people to find a small amount of money. We can all probably find I don't know how much a football ticket is these days. Probably anything from £20 to thousands of pounds. And okay, well, what if you take one of those and you invest in your club and it pays you a return? You're already passionate about it. Why not do that some more? And so I turn the question to you and say, well, what's your passion? I do this in the hopes I get thrown a curveball, and very occasionally I do. It's a challenge as to whether or not I can identify some relevant real estate in whatever your particular passion is. So please.
Well, fortunately for me, there's already that infrastructure in place for my passion, which is startups and founders.
Early stage VCs and angel investing.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I suppose that would be. But I mean, if it was something other than that, then I don't know. I guess maybe the world of gaming is quite an interesting one. I mean, the parallel, like there are parallels with what you said about the football team and esports teams, for example. So there'd be a similar thing there, perhaps.
No, absolutely. The event space, there's a good one. I mean, all of these things, all of human activity, and it sounds funny to say, takes place in a place, and well, somebody's got to finance that place. Somebody's got to, inverted commas, own part of it, and there's a reason big banks and real estate investment funds and all of these things that exist is because that they know there is income, relatively stable income as well, in all of these spaces. And so if you can open that up, and this is where blockchain comes in, to create an efficient network, a capital network as we call it, then everybody could own a piece of that. And whatever your passion is, and it's limitless. That's the thing, because real estate is all around us. And okay, some people don't find it super exciting, but is that the case? If you go and watch your favorite esports team or you go and watch your football team, no, you love your ground.
There is one that's come to mind actually, which I guess used to be a very, very strong passion of mine, and then hasn't, just simply because of the fact that I've got older and have more responsibilities and don't have the time, which is live music. I was heavily involved in the live music industry in my younger years before I actually went into a more corporate sort of career, I guess you could say, sales, and then everything that followed on from there, leading to now. And actually, the first business that I ever ran was a live music promotion, like a promotions company, and we put on gigs and all that kind of stuff. So I was heavily involved in that scene for a long, long time. And what you're saying there was making me think of that, live music venues. And live music venues are dying and have been dying a death for a very, very long time, especially in this country anyway. And that's been very sad to see. So is this concept applicable to something like that?
Absolutely. Any venue, any real estate, any whatever it is asset that you can invest in or is investable in, let's say, a little bit careful, cautious around that, is absolutely able to be brought onto our platform once we get to the MVP. I say everybody suddenly leaps up and starts sending emails. Oh yeah, I want to refinance this. Hold on. Absolutely. Principally because, broadly speaking, an asset is an asset. It has certain characteristics. We can evaluate all of those things and then offer that to the network of investors and say, well, you love live music. Maybe you'd be interested in this. You can see this is what it's going to return. This is how often it's rented out for event spaces, how many gigs you have. And there's loads of spaces like this all over the place. And not only, this is the thing you love, you're going to spend money, you're going to buy a ticket, you're going to go and watch whatever your favorite band is, or whatever it is, but it's going to pay you back for that as well. And you can apply it, we think, and we say, to anything. And live music is a great one. Event space is very, I understand it can be very, I don't know, volatile is not the right word because it sounds even worse, but it can be quite suitable. But yeah, there's a lot of space, and a lot of people love live music. They love getting together. They love going to a gig, a concert, whatever it is. And so you can see where you can get to a position where you can see, well, there's a band wants to put something on. They say, no, we'd like to do it here. Can we fund it? And then, their X tens of hundreds of thousands, millions of fans come along and say, yeah, brilliant, I'm there. I'll take a piece of that action. And not only do you get a better return for investors, you get more money for your money. Your money works harder for you, which it always should. But you're also part of something, and there's a very human need, a psychological need to be part of something. We have our greater tribe, so to speak, the people of the country, and then we have all these little sections and slices of, I'm also, because I love football, or because I love music, or because I love this thing, that's also my section, my people, my tribe, whatever you want to call it. And you can not buy your way in, but you can really commit to that and own a piece of it as well, and belong.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's really interesting, and I've got a ton of questions about it, but I don't want to jump too much into that just yet. If that's okay, I wanted to get a bit of context for sort of, which you've already given a bit of, but just to understand a bit more about you and kind of how you got to this point, if that's okay, because I do have a lot of questions about it, though, which we will get to. But it's interesting because if you are certainly not the first lawyer turned founder on the show. In fact, I've spoken to quite a lot, and it's really interesting. There seems to be a lot more in the last couple of years that I've talked to than any other time in my life, and I don't know what's going on with that. Maybe I'm just attracting solicitors. I don't know what that says about me, but yeah, but it's interesting. I mean, it also mustn't be an easy decision to make, because there's a lot of and this isn't something I've asked really anyone else, to be honest, and it's kind of only just occurring to me now that there's a lot of time and effort and energy that goes into becoming a solicitor. So to decide to move away from that, which I know you're saying you're still currently practicing, but I'm assuming the goal is to launch this startup and then eventually to move away from that, right? I mean, it must be quite a difficult decision to make, because of that. That's the decision to become a lawyer in itself is quite a commitment. So, I'm just really bemused by why so many people want to move away from it. Are there aspects of being a lawyer that are just that bad that people don't know about? Like, what's going on here?
Yes and no. It's hard to give an unguarded answer to that, really. But
yeah,
I'll put my lawyer's hat on for a second and give you well, it depends.
Right.
It's true. I think it's like any profession in this day and age, in like a modern age, professions, jobs, they're not what they once were, and then not what you expect them to be either. And I thoroughly enjoy being a lawyer. I still do it, sort of ad hoc, and it's fascinating. Intellectually speaking, it's fascinating. It's all about working out a problem. Well, working out what the problem is and then solving that problem. And that appeals, I think, intellectually to people like me, people similar to me as well. But therein lies a bit of a rub. Because I've done so many things in the past, I have a portfolio of activities and things that I'm interested in. I don't like to be pigeonholed. Though you're just a lawyer, and there's always a risk that happens. And certainly, the older you get, the more pigeonholed you become. But there's taking what's almost a theoretical exercise and applying it, putting your money where your mouth is, I guess, is what it is, and seriously trying to do something to make a difference. And this is something that I guess as lawyers we can see where the gaps are. We understand from the clients we have, from the law we read, where the needs are, where the gaps are. And some lawyers will fight the government and say, no, you've got this wrong, this needs to change, or others will try to make the best situation for their clients. And yet others, particularly, I would also say, because lawyers can come from quite a diverse background and have a bizarre array of skills sometimes. One of my supervisors was a very competent pianist. I mean, they just, and he played in a band as well and just stuff like that. So it's what an odd skill to have when you're a lawyer day to day, but that's lawyers. And so in that sense, one is it's a broad church. You get a lot of people from a lot of different places.
Hi, a friendly reminder to share this episode with your network, like and subscribe. And if you are feeling really supportive, please consider reviewing the show on the podcast platform of your choice. It all really helps support what we do. Thank you. Now back to the show.
But also you get a lot of people who are very interested in lots of different things. And in some ways, I guess lawyers are the best and worst entrepreneurs you'll find. Just very careful how I say that. Entrepreneurially minded, or ability to see opportunity in different things. Maybe we don't act on it, but some of us do, and some of us step out. And I've seen it a lot with AI in particular, and people think, there's something here. And it's true, there is something there. I'm not convinced I've seen what I think is, inverted commas, the solution for AI in law, but it's definitely there. And it comes with a combination of all those things, just sort of naturally curious and skilled people in very odd and different and distinct ways. And that's a combination of that for me is what I've applied in doing something different, and certainly seeing blockchain startups and tokenization projects over the years, and you look at them and you think, I'm not really sure about this. I see what you're trying to do, but does the world need an NFT and a meme coin? No, is a simple answer. You're wasting your time and effort on something that, or it's a rug pull, which.
Well, I was going to say, as a lawyer, then you probably, you're probably looking at that thinking, no. But it's interesting because of like I've worked in medtech at various points in my career too, as well as all the other tech types, I suppose. And in working in medtech, I was exposed to working with a lot of doctors, ex-surgeons, ex-doctors, ex-GPs, etc. And I say ex because a lot of them would move away from working, say, for the NHS or, mostly for the NHS in the UK, and then sort of, district hospitals and stuff in the States to work more private because of various reasons, but mostly because of money, but also because of the fact that they just weren't challenged enough, that there was a lot of monotony involved, and really at a certain point, like kind of what you said, your expectations of the job early on and then doing the job are two completely different things. Once you've been in it for a long period of time, you just sort of think, wow, I spent all that time studying, all that time, spending all those tuition fees and everything like that, and this just isn't what I expected it to be, or it's drastically changed, or it's been under, like all of these things. So I've been wondering if maybe there's a lot of similarities between those in law and those in medicine, in that sense, that it's kind of like this disillusion of being in it for that long. Probably the lure of maybe being able to make more money, because I know that just because you're a solicitor doesn't necessarily, or a lawyer doesn't mean you're suddenly going to become rich. Like, you have to work with the right people, the right firms, get the right cases, etc. So I don't know, is there some truth to that sort of hypothesis that I've been working on?
Well, I suspect so. Again, I think because we're curious people, and we're always trying to grow, and the law's always changing, but there is like most jobs, there is a monotony to it sometimes.
Yeah.
To your day, I've done a lot of work in and around litigation, and it's very admin heavy. You're dealing with documents all day, and whatever it is you may be doing, but it's a lot of managing process. That's not really what you want to be doing as a lawyer. You want to be, I'm thinking about the law, this is the issue, how can we position this, argue this, whatever it may be. And that kind of takes over. Now, if you want AI's help, bring it and do the admin. That's the old meme, isn't it? I want AI to do the dishes and the laundry so I can focus on my job. I don't want AI to do my job so I can focus on the dishes and the laundry. That kind of misses the point. I need support where I need support. And there is that. I suspect you can begin to run out of challenge. You begin to see that a lot of the problems are the same, a lot of the answers are the same, a lot of the advice is going to be the same. How can you mix that up? And if you're a little bit like me and you're open to new challenges, it's not. I'm not concerned about that sunk cost of learning the law and qualifying to become a lawyer. That's just part of my journey. I sort of accept that in a broader sense, and I've continued doing bits and pieces off the back of that as well. Perhaps, it's not very strategic in my thinking, but this is interesting. I want to know more, and a lot of it feeds into what I'm doing now.
But I suppose really you're in a profession, a lot like in medicine, where continuous learning is a very important part of that, because it's so much always happening and changing. A lot of cases that you probably have to review, and changes in law or updates to law, things like that. So it's probably quite an all-encompassing thing, I imagine.
Yeah.
But
even outside of that as well, various things I've done to understand, just generally more about the world around me. And I think that might typify founders more broadly. Is a curiosity and an inquisitiveness about lots of things, and and even on the journey that I've been going on the last, a few months now, just the need to learn new skills, and you need to learn about marketing, and marketing's hard. Anybody who's ever become it looks easy, like here's a logo, here's a brand, No. You really need to sit down and go very deep in terms of creativity and understanding what it is you do and your thing does and what it means. And it's hard. I had a smashing headache for about 2 days on the venture builder I was on, just after going through some some marketing exercises.
Well, to play devil's advocate here, I don't know why venture builders are teaching anything about marketing, to be honest, because that is completely useless to learn when you're an early stage startup founder. Like, well, you know, it seems to be that the reason why they teach that a lot of the time, and I'm sure listeners who have been through this will appreciate what I'm saying, hopefully, is that, you know, teaching marketing is somewhat formulaic. There's a formula to it. There's a lot of stuff being written about it. Whereas the skill or the area of expertise people should really be teaching about on, you know, accelerators and incubators and stuff like that is sales. But that's a lot less tangible. And a lot of these people don't have those skills. So, but that's what they should be teaching. Like, always, like, screw marketing. Knowing how to make a website or do SEO is not useful for you when you're an early stage founder. Like, you know.
Well, I see why you'd say that. I think what I would suggest is that marketing, and if I can simplify it, and I'll probably be told off for this, but a lot of it's around communication. As a lawyer, I found that helpful. I suppose as a lawyer, I communicate in a very certain way. This is my advice. By necessity, it's technical, and whilst I don't want to say simplify it, but I need to boil it down into something accessible for a client if I'm giving advice or whatever it may be. And you've got to weave a very coherent thread through something that is likely to be very convoluted and technical and all sorts of pieces all over the place, very fragmented. And what I found with marketing, just to contrast that, is, well, no, what's your message? Find your message. And it did help me understand what it was I was trying to say. I could rationalize it and I could explain it in 27 sides of A4, but what I needed to be able to do was articulate that in one line. And so it really did help that. But I also agree that there's an art to selling, or maybe it's not selling, but it's salesmanship. But again, it's kind of communication based. Can I have a conversation with somebody? Can they understand what I'm trying to do?
Yeah, it's 100% communication. Yeah.
And can I get them on board for?
Yeah. I mean, the way I often explain it to founders, because as you know, I speak to a lot of founders doing, work as an advisor, as a fractional, and doing pro bono work. The way that there's two ways I often explain the difference between marketing and sales. And the most easy one, I think, to comprehend is, imagine going to a networking event, and the network hosts, the people who run it, say, you have an opportunity to go up on stage and tell everyone what it is you do to encourage them to come and speak to you. So you go, okay, brilliant. So you go up on stage and you go, hi, everyone, my name's Greg. This is what I do. If you're interested, come and speak to me. That's marketing, right? Because you're putting it out there, and then you're saying, this is what, this is a bit about me. And so you've got to be fairly concise with that particular message. But what that message is in terms of communication is an invitation to have a conversation, right? That's all it is. And then once you get off stage, and then people come and say, oh, what you said there was really interesting. I'd love to know more. That conversation is sales. Right, because now what you're trying to do is move them. Marketing is to get the conversation, and then the conversation is now getting them along the pipeline towards potentially closing. That's the way I describe it. Or the other way I describe it is from a business point of view as well. Is let's say you walk past someone's house and you see that they've got a broken fence. A marketer, would walk up to the door, knock on the door. I'm ruining my own. I'm ruining my own thing that I've said a million times. A marketer would look at that and go, interesting. They'd go home, they'd design a beautiful flyer and explain how they fix fences and the different types of offers that they can do, the different payment plans, the different types of fencing materials they can get, all of that kind of thing. And they'd make it double-sided. They'd go and get it printed. They'd work with illustrators and printers and all that. And then they'd go and then they'd put it through the letterbox, right? Whereas a salesperson would walk up, knock on the door, open the door and go, I see you've got a broken fence. I fix fences. That's the difference. So you can see how in an early stage startup compared to a later stage business, one is far more useful than the other.
No, that's a good point.
I've done both, so I can be critical of both.
I see your point. I think you're right. We did spend a lot of time in and around pitching, which is which is selling, really.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
and that's again,
but it helps you come up with to your point. It helps you come up with those formulas of words, those phrases, those key terms and so on that can be used in marketing later on. Because unless you're selling, and this is why I always say sell first, market later, is because unless you're actually having conversations with people, you have no idea what words actually create the reaction or express yourself or explain your product in the right way. So pitching is a great thing to do in that sense, because then you start writing it down. Oh, last time I said that, that really had a reaction. Okay, good. And then you know what to put on your website. You know what to put in your posts. You know what I mean? So
yeah. No, it is. That is tricky. That is tricky, particularly for something like Irealise, and we're trying to ultimately appeal to everybody. All the people all the time, and all those sorts of problems begin to come out. But where blockchain hasn't really made enough, I don't want to say market access or something like that, hasn't really appealed broadly enough, is because it's not been perceived to include enough people. And that's, we all talk about inclusion and all this kind of thing. It's like, well, let's start with something where people could be included and things are accessible, and finance and savings, and these are all big problems, etc. But yeah, I find myself in agreement with you that, although I did agree to some extent, marketing to help shape that proposition, and then selling, because ultimately you've got to go and convince people to put their money where their mouth is, but whatever it is you're selling to, investors, users, and so on, you sort of be able to do that. So but all of these things, are skills they're not necessarily innate to lawyers. We're good at understanding problems.
Not innate to anybody.
Advice.
Yeah. Well, isn't there a certain, part of, and I'm going to make a huge assumption here, but I would imagine, based on watching TV and stuff, but I'd imagine being part of a lawyer, a lot of that is being a good auteur, right? Being a great communicator, but both in the written form and verbally, right? Especially written, I would imagine, because you have to do a lot of that. But so wouldn't you? I would assume that you would have a distinct advantage actually over a lot of other people coming from other professions in that sense.
It's a good question. It's quite tricky. I would suggest there's different ways of writing depending on your audience, and lawyers are all trained for that. But there's subtle differences between doing some legal analysis and delivering some advice, and there is having a narrower conversation around the technology and how it can benefit you, or how you articulate what, in our case, in Irealise's case, what we believe to be the problem broadly in the financial services sector, that it's too exclusive. And you begin to find that you need a lot of words to explain this. And in a social media-driven attention span, which is less than 30 seconds, I think 20-something seconds is the amount of time anybody will, even you look at short videos on whatever your platform is, and people are flicking through them. Right. If you don't capture people's attention and convey some modicum of understanding about what you're doing within a shockingly short time frame, you've lost them.
I suppose you've just reminded me of a very important point with your startup, which is that it is B2C, right? Or it's B2C or B2B, B2C. Would that be?
Yeah, it's about B to everybody.
Okay. B to E.
Everyone. Yeah, because it's in the first instance, there are various challenges, and businesses are in some ways easier to deal with. And because we are talking about finance and investment, there's various regulations and things that sit around them. So yeah, in the first instance, it's, we're looking at businesses, but, like any platform or even any blockchain, there's a mix of people that are using these things. Businesses are using them, but individuals are using them as well. And so it's everybody, albeit it's broadly B2B, we would say in the first instance.
Right. But no, that would explain why as well. I'm just thinking about why there's that not focus, but that consideration for, I guess, how you can communicate from a marketing sense to the user, because of there is an element of having to encourage end users, i.e., the general public to adopt it at some point too. But yeah, I don't know. Look, in my experience, I've just found that quite often in B2B sales, especially in the early part of the conversations, exactly how something works it's just not important. It's more just like, do you have this problem? Yeah, okay, well, we've got a solution for that problem, and it could help you make money or save money or time. And that's usually it. And really, I think that the sort of nitty gritty of the technology behind it is a conversation that usually happens far later. But yeah, I don't know. That's just my experience. But
I agree absolutely. There's a lot of startups, I would suggest, make a mistake of, they get going, they put a website up. This is how it works.
Right.
Don't care. sorry, I don't care. I'm just not interested.
What does it do? That's what we want to know. What does it do?
What's the outcome? I don't care that you've got a blockchain and you've got some clever tokens that
Right.
do something that I'm not really very clear on because you don't explain it very well. It's just not relevant. And by the same token, would you go, I'll take financial services as an example, or even the doctors, it doesn't matter. You go with a problem, you want it solved, you don't really care how. Or I don't know. The silly example I tend to use is, an ATM machine. You want to get some cash out if you ever need to get cash these days. But that machine does so much in the background. You put your card in, put your PIN code in. So
you just want it to work. Yeah.
That's it. Just give me my £10. You don't care. It's connecting to your bank and checking your bank account, making sure you're the right person, and blah, blah. Have you got enough money? Have I got enough money to be able to do this? Like all checks in the background. You don't see it. And the banks, same, transaction, anti-money laundering, all the stuff that happens in the background. That's all going on all the time. Do you care? No. You just get a phone call from your bank saying, "Did you make this transaction?" "Oh no." "Okay, no, don't worry, we've stopped it." "Oh, okay, thank you." And so it's all behind the scenes. And the best technology, and there's obviously the Arthur C. Clarke quote, isn't there? Sufficiently advanced technology being indistinguishable from magic. It's that kind of effect. I want to do this. Oh, I've done it. Brilliant. I only had to press that button.
Yeah.
Great. I don't care that 3 data centers in the background have processed. AI is a good one. 3 data centers in the background have processed a terabyte of information to give me that pithy answer.
And it's interesting because it seems like people have caught on to this with AI quicker than they have done, or I don't think they did at all, to be honest, with blockchain and Web3, which is that with blockchain and Web3, it was worn like a badge of honor by everyone that was involved. And obviously, for many, as we know, there's a lot of nefarious stuff that was involved there too. So it created this distrust in a way for these technologies. But then it felt like that was, for a lot of these companies, the only real selling point, to say it's blockchain. Whereas fortunately, I'm seeing, at least with AI, we're seeing a bit more sensible use of AI, where yes, it's AI enabled, but it's like, it's not the main selling point, but the point is what it does, and the AI is almost invisible, and I think that's a good thing, especially from a consumer perspective, because if you don't really want to have to do some additional work, speak with something like that, some of the best tools that I'm seeing emerge are ones that are using AI actually far more in the background of their product to facilitate and do things that produce specific results or outcomes for the user, as opposed to saying, right, you have to engage with this AI, you have to ask it to do. Do you know what I mean? That seems to have a much better effect. So I think we are slowly seeing that with blockchain now as well. I think maybe some lessons being learned, especially with the combination of AI and blockchain being able to work together. That's really exciting. What are they calling it? Web 4 or something like that. That's really exciting. So, I would urge anyone, I suppose, who's looking at a blockchain Web3 solutions or technologies to try and take that approach, I think, and learn something from that. Because if it is a great user experience, to your point, to feel like you do something and it happens just by magic. You know what I mean? That's a great feeling from a user experience perspective in software.
Yeah. No, I agree. As I said, that's where blockchain has, it's gone down this strange marketing rabbit hole of the blockchain is the answer. Is the answer? Blockchain is just how you do it, and it's important. But there's a test. I forget where this comes from, but go and talk to your grandparents and try and explain it to them. And if they go, no, just stop, go away, forget it. There's no point. Okay. Yeah. I'm sure all our parents, grandparents can use smartphones these days. Everyone's fairly tech savvy. You say, Grandma, Granddad, go to that app, press that button, then this thing that you need to happen happens. Brilliant. That's don't need to know how. That's that. If you want to know, come, we'll have the conversation, but you don't need to know.
Right.
That's to some extent, we have to promote the benefits, and something Irealise we're looking at. You have to promote the benefits of blockchain. It's not necessarily obvious to people. I can make transfers of this. I go to my bank and I can send money. Well, okay, yeah, that's great, but can you do that at scale?
If you are enjoying this episode and want to support the show, please like, subscribe with notifications turned on, and let us know your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. This lets YouTube know we are doing something right. Back to the show.
Here's one challenge. Can you do that transparently, efficiently? Can you automate all of these things? And with blockchain, yes, we can. Plus, it's immutable. You know what's happened everywhere, every when, and those are the benefits. That scaling effect is a benefit, but do you want to lead with that? Probably not.
Yeah. And you mentioned that you were part of an incubator. Is that right? Did you say? A moment ago?
Yeah.
Which incubator was that?
Block Dojo.
Oh, Block Dojo. Of course. Yeah, of course. And how did you find it?
It was great. I careful what I say. I have history with them. No, so I mentored for Block Dojo for a couple of years or so.
Right.
Now, so I knew them, knew the team pretty well, and last year, because I'd been trying to push this on as a concept pretty much on my own for a while, and wasn't really getting anywhere, and was kind of struggling, and I could see the problems that I was having were predominantly technical ones. Latterly, it's been solved now. I've just engaged a CTO, which is great news. But that was kind of the core of the challenge. Plus, there's also the benefit of being held to account. And, okay, I've got this idea and this is what I think is the problem. And people I talk to tell me, yes, that's quite an interesting problem. And yes, if you could solve it, that'd be great. Is that true? Or because I know them, they're just being kind and they don't want to cut me off at the knees?
Right.
So there's all these sorts of thoughts were going through my mind. And I thought, I need to find a different way forward if I'm going to be serious. If I'm serious about this. And so I spoke to the guys there, and they said, "No, you should apply and come on board, and we'll explore that." And so I joined them last cohort 9. They've just started just today. In fact, they've started the next cohort, which is great news for them.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to Kate because I catch up with Kate every now and then, and obviously I've had Gareth on the show as well. And yeah, last time I caught up with Kate, she was telling me, it was just before Christmas, and she was telling me like, oh yeah, we just ended that cohort and we're starting. I'm like, you guys are relentless. They really are going for it, and it's amazing what they're doing. I'm quite in awe of it. And to really start integrating and making AI a real focus of what they're doing now too, which I've noticed in the last couple of cohorts, is great to see as well. We were considering joining actually at one point, but we realised that we weren't quite. We were just a little further along, I guess, from a product perspective, so it wasn't quite right. But yeah, lovely people. And I've heard nothing but great things about the program itself.
Yeah, I had a great time. It was 3 months. It was pretty hard. I was still working and doing bits and pieces outside of it. But it was what I appreciated was, I suppose, the structure and the rigor, and it's also the holding to account. So you've got these things you need to do them, get them done. Take that time, take that focus, take the effort, and deliver this thing. We'll get to a point where you're comfortable with how you think you want to. And then, lots of experts and talks on various different things to be aware of. And then they also helped build part of the MVP, which, as I say, hopefully within the next couple of weeks we'll be able to release inverted commas as a test case more than anything. But they really did accelerate everything that I was trying to do and helping me validate that. And also holding myself and all the other founders in the cohort to account in the sense that we're not in our own little mental rabbit hole in terms of, I think this is an idea and it's the next $1 billion next unicorn or whatever, when it probably quite obviously isn't. But they really help you shape that proposition and help you focus. And that's another challenge I think a lot of founders face, is the amount of noise. And even now, and I'll talk to my advisors or friends or family or whomever I'm talking to, and there's such a conflict of opinion about everything. And so you've got one person telling you it's left and the other one saying it's right, and you think, well, it can't be both because it's either or. And so all of that to say, one of the other things that I think they gave me is sort of certainty, like confidence to be certain in my own mind that no, I know where I'm going with this.
Right.
And it's okay. I can take all this advice, but I know what to listen to and perhaps what not to listen to. And I'm not just talking about it's confirmation bias.
No, I know what you mean.
It's objectively
right. Yeah.
Actually, this is the right way to go.
No, you're absolutely right. It's a really difficult skill, I think, to hone and develop. And I don't know any founder that's nailed it. But yeah, that ability to sort of create a filter almost of all of the different opinions that you might get or thoughts, whatever, and feedback on something. Like, great example for that for myself is, I've got a fantastic team in Peer, which is my startup. Obviously my co-founder, and then the executive team, and then our board of advisors and NEDs and all that sort of stuff. And sometimes there are some things that will go through everyone at some point. Start with my co-founder and I, and then filter down, because we want to get everyone's opinions. But you have to take everyone's opinions with a pinch of salt. And ultimately, as the CEO, the buck stops with me, and I have to sort of, look at that and go, right, okay, all really useful, really appreciate it, but actually in reality, I'm probably going to ignore 99.9% of it, right? It's the reality, but it's there. I've taken it on board. I've noted it down, and if you're right and I'm wrong, then so be it. And I will put my hands up and say that if that turns to be the case. But it's a very difficult thing, and I'm still learning. I think all founders are, but you do have to however you approach that, you do have to approach that with a certain level of confidence. And I think you can only get that either, like you say, working with people like Block Dojo who have been there and done that and can kind of give you the frameworks, I guess, for arriving at that conclusion, or just helping you form your vision to the point where you just know that what people are telling you doesn't fit that vision, right? Which I think is probably the more immediate way of doing it. It's just like, well, okay, I definitely know we need to head here. And what you're suggesting just doesn't quite align with that. And, we're not at the point now where we're going to completely change direction. We don't have enough evidence of that yet. So let's just keep heading there. But I was curious to ask you, though, two things. How did you originally get involved with Block Dojo and as a mentor? And then also, would it be fair to say that your involvement in Block Dojo actually in some way maybe contributed to the idea you had, being exposed to other founders who are working in blockchain and Web3 and stuff like that? Can you speak a bit on that?
Yeah, I've been asked this a few times recently. How did I first become a mentor? And to be honest, I'm not really sure.
I just woke up one day and it was happening.
I'm trying to remember. I just don't recall. I think, and I stand to be corrected if anybody knows different, but I think I connected with various people on LinkedIn, and somebody affiliated with the Block Dojo a couple of years or so ago. It's probably cohort 2, I think, was my first mentoring. And so,
quite early on then.
But I'd been to see the cohort 1. I think it was the pitches that they did towards the end of the cohort, and I was just randomly connected with somebody interested in startups, technology, etc. And I just got invited along, and along I went, and that was the start of it. And then following that, because I thought it was super interesting to get involved in an accelerator, venture builder at that stage, and then they invited me back to come and be a mentor, see if I was interested. I said, yeah, sure. And I think that was Jan that got in touch with me about that, and it went from there. And you begin to see over time, even Block Dojo has refined its own approach and things it's looking for, and their own judgment around startups and the potential for those startups. But the range of ideas people have was just phenomenal. The variety of startups I spoke with and founders I met, and whether or not I believed in their ability to deliver this, or that it was actually solving a problem, is kind of secondary to their confidence and desire to try. And I think probably the mark of any entrepreneur or founder is the ability, not the ability, but the desire to take some risk, kind of see what happens. And if the first go around doesn't pay off, let's do the second one. And because there's a fair chance your first idea is going to be nonsense, and it's not going to make sense, and it's not really a problem. It's it's your own imagination and creation. But through that process, you will learn. Again, to your point about lifelong learning, you will learn how to identify actual problems. And just as a segue, I met the founder of Carter recently, named Henry Ward, lovely guy, and read a bit about him, spoke to him, and he had some other ideas, and then it all kind of stopped and didn't really work very well. And then he was talking to some one of his mentors, I think, and this mentor suggested something around, sort of cap tables and challenges, startup space managing, all that kind of thing. And he just went, oh, okay, there's an idea, let's do that. And off he went. And here we are a few years later, and Carter's worth, I don't know what it's worth now, but a lot. But, that was a conversation about, if he hadn't gone through that journey beforehand to meet those people and have those mentors and have that conversation, he wouldn't have then gone on to, form Carter. And so you never know. And that's the thing, first idea, probably not going to go anywhere, but you don't know where it's going to lead you. And that's that desire and that perseverance to keep going, even in the face of that overwhelming truth that, your startup's more likely to fail than succeed, statistically speaking, is kind of sets founders, marks them out, I suppose. Is the thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it also, I think, speaks to why it's so important to tell as many people about your idea as possible. I really don't understand the mindset of a lot of young founders, especially I speak to, where they're very, very protective of their idea early on. It's like, just tell people, because you're not going to know if it's a good or a crap idea unless you talk to people about it. Like, tell everyone, and you might be really pleasantly surprised what people say. People might say, look, I had that idea, it didn't work, or I did that, it didn't work, or I tried this and it did work. And have you, and like, to your point about the CEO of Carter, like, someone may have a very valuable set of feedback or insight that can lead to further developing that idea. But you're not going to hear any of that unless you're prepared to talk to people about it, especially other entrepreneurs, other founders. I think it's so important to do that, because if you've got that similar curiosity and determination within that, and people aren't interested in stealing your ideas, because that's the fear, isn't it, that underlines it, is people are worried that people are going to say, no one's going to steal your idea, man. No one can. It's more likely someone's going to come up with that idea independently to you than they are to steal it. The reality is, if you're going, especially to places where there are a lot of founders and entrepreneurs, they're all interested in their thing. But if you tell them about another idea, they're going to be interested in it to the point of, like, it's a puzzle, right? We're all interested in, like, solving these puzzles, basically. So we'll take on that challenge mentally for a brief moment and throw you our opinions, our thoughts, our ideas, or whatever, and then do what you will with it. But then we're still going to go off and do our thing. Like, it's exactly, very unlikely we're going to go, actually, do you know what? I'm going to scrap everything I've been working on and I'm just going to steal that guy's idea. Like, come on, like, you know what I mean?
That's it. We're going to pivot everything into this. No, you're right. But it's I think it's a very human thing, isn't it? We all get a little bit protective, a little bit precious, perhaps, around these things.
Yeah, but ideas aren't worth anything.
I agree. Again, is it Michael Dell? Ideas are commodities, execution is not, I think he said.
Yeah.
And it's great. Loads of people can have a load of ideas. But who's actually executing any of these things?
Right.
Who knows? And so the advantage that startups have, and there's the sort of counter arguments to this all the way. If you're trying to evaluate your own idea, one of the questions you should ask is, well, I've got this idea and it's it's something techie and it works on a platform, and maybe it's proximate to, I don't know, Google or Meta or Microsoft, whomever, it doesn't really matter. Could they just do it? Yes, is the answer. They are monolithic, incredibly well funded, awash with money, and they could do it. But there's a reason they've not done it. For whatever, who knows what they are? I'm not privy to their internal processes. And so, well, surely there's an opportunity. So on the one hand, you should do it. On the other hand, you shouldn't do it. Oh, well, okay, now you're in the same boat again. I'll do it. The answers are left and right, yes and no, all at the same time. But it's still an idea. And again, who knows? Maybe this isn't the idea. Maybe it's the next idea you come up with off the back of that.
Sure, but you're only going to find out if you try, right? But I mean,
exactly.
not doing something because the fact that someone else might do it is a terrible reason to not do something. I mean, otherwise, if that was the case, we wouldn't have any innovation at all. Like, exactly. There's a certain amount of arrogance that has to come in being a founder to say, like, well, I've got this idea and I'm the one that can make it happen. And you sometimes need several people to come up with the same idea and have that same arrogance in order to. And plus, competition is important. I mean, just because of I mean, Google exists, but so do other, well, maybe Google is a bad example, but they have products that exist, and other, Google Cloud exists, but so does, Google Drive exists, but so does Microsoft Teams and 365 and all that. So, you don't, it doesn't mean that we need options. The world wants options, and well, the law requires it to an extent, right? You need to have competition.
Yeah, absolutely. But don't be put off. I think you're right. Ultimately, the take home is don't be put off by that. Just because somebody could do it doesn't mean they will do it, like you said.
It's a question I've been asked by investors too. It's like, well, what's stopping so and so from building that? So, well, nothing. What a stupid fucking question. That's not what we're here for to discuss. Go and ask them. Right, exactly. That's not what I'm doing. It's like, what a stupid question. You shouldn't be an investor if that's your question. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
I think it goes to the same thing, this sort of, there's a lot of people with a lot of ideas. Who's executing them? There's a lot of people with a lot of money. What are you investing in? And I think questions like that probably lead a conclusion for the founder that then they're looking to avoid investment rather than looking to invest.
Yeah.
They're not looking at what the potential could be. They're just looking, what are the pitfalls and can I avoid, or can I end this conversation sooner because I don't really want to invest?
Pretty much. Yeah.
Right. Well, okay.
Which happens a lot more than I think people are willing to admit, unfortunately, that there are a lot of conversations with investors that are really, their focus is to try and find reasons not to invest rather than to invest, which is a shame, but there you go. But look, we're actually coming to the end of part one, but in part two, I would really like to delve a bit more into your specific product and how it works, because I've got a lot of questions around that. So we will get to the technical bit, I guess, actually, but that's just, again, because I'm curious, and that's really what the show is all about. It's my very selfish ploy to be able to be curious with other interesting people. So yeah, we'll delve into that. I'm really curious to see how that all pans out. But thanks for joining me for part one. For those listening and watching, we'll be back in a couple of days' time for part two. So make sure you subscribe and all that nonsense so that you get notifications for it. So yeah, that's it. End of part one. See you in part two.
Thank you for listening and/or watching. Subscribe with notifications turned on to get notified when part two comes out. While you wait, please join in the conversation in the comments below.